In this video, you're going to learn why your shoving ranges need to change in a bounty tournament compared to a regular tournament. Hey, how's it going? Gareth James here for mttpokerschool.com, and today what we're going to look at is a pretty interesting situation. You can see Hero here in the cutoff with around 11 big blinds, and we have a decision to make about whether we should shove or fold. Now, in a regular tournament for chip EV, this is definitely going to be a shove. So we're going to have a look at the shoving range for chip EV in a moment. And then what we're going to do is compare this shoving range to what happens when you have one bounty on your head, so the bounty that you started the tournament with. And then we're going to have a look at what happens when you have 3 times the starting bounty on your head instead. So first then, let's have a look at chip EV. And as we thought, you can have a look here. This is the Nash equilibrium spot for the cutoff. So it shows that pocket twos is going to be a jam, shoving any ace, king 9 off plus, king 3 suited plus, and then a series of suited connectors down here, suited connectors and suited gappers. So these pairs and suited hands down here are going to become very, very interesting later on. So now let's have a look at what happens when we have one bounty on our head. So just to fill you in on the scenario a little bit more, there were 1,300 players in this tournament, 659 players remaining. So they're not in the money. So we're going to be working this out in terms of chip EV. So there's no sort of ICM considerations. Let's now look at the one bounty scenario. Okay, so what you can see is that pocket twos is still a shove when you have one bounty on your head. But pretty interesting that your range needs to get a little bit tighter. So if we just flick back to our shoving range for chip EV without any bounty consideration, we could shove 36.3% of hands. Here now we can only shove 31.2%. And the reason for that is that the players behind us are going to want to start chasing our bounty, right? So when we're thinking about chip EV, we have, somewhat more fold equity, whereas in a bounty tournament we suddenly lose that fold equity because everyone's going to be chasing our bounty, or they're going to be looking to call wider in order to chase our bounty. So I think that's a really important consideration here, and something that might be sort of counterintuitive, that you actually need to shove tighter in a bounty tournament when you have one bounty, that is. Let's just have a quick look at the calling ranges. So you can see like the big blind's supposed to call 55% of hands all of a sudden, and this range is pretty wide. You're ordinarily not going to see the big blind call this wide in a regular tournament, but in a bounty tournament, this is what it's suggesting the big blind can call with. If we go back to chip EV, you can see now it's a much tighter range, more realistic for what the big blind is likely to call in a regular tournament. Okay, so now let's have a look at what it looks like when we have 3 bounties on our head. And all of a sudden you can see that pocket twos is dropping out of that range. So when we have 3 times the starting bounty in this particular situation, we actually need to start folding pocket twos. But what's interesting, I think, is that the range of hands goes back up, right? So for chip EV, it was 36.3, one bounty, it was 31.2, and now for 3 bounties, it's back up to 36.5. So I think that's pretty interesting. But what I think is more interesting is the way that the range is made up. So what we'll see, if we're now going to flick between chip EV and 3 bounties, is that in chip EV, if we go here, we can see a lot of these sort of suited connectors and suited gappers and pocket twos down here. They suddenly disappear. You can see now, so like 8-7 suited, 9-7 suited, pocket twos disappears, but then some more of these sort of high card hands, king 8 off, queen 9 off, jack 9 off, start to appear in the range. So it's really important to sort of understand how the ranges are constructed and also why they're constructed in that way. So let's just have a quick look at this. You can now see that the button, the small blind, big blind are calling ridiculously wide when we've got 3 bounties. So all of a sudden now the big blind can call any 2 cards here, and then the button and the small blind, you know, they're calling pretty wide as well. If we compare this again to 1 bounty, the big blind was calling 55%, and chip EV, the big blind was calling 31.2%. So that's pretty interesting. The reason why those suited gappers, suited connectors, and pocket 2s drop out of this range, though, when we have 3 bounties, is for a couple of reasons. One is obviously these ranges get a lot wider, so we don't benefit from as much fold equity, and you know, small pairs and those suited gappers and connectors benefit from fold equity. That's where a lot of their EV comes from. But also what's happening, if we just click, let's have a look. If we click here on the button, you can see that the overcall ranges for the small blind and the big blind are also really, really wide. And pocket 2s, 9-7 suited, 8-7 suited, they're going to play really poorly multi-way in this situation. So that's why they're dropping out. And that's why when you have a big bounty, or 3 times the starting bounty is in this example, you have to shove more high card heavy hands, and the small pair and the sort of medium suited connectors and gappers, they need to drop out. All right, so that's going to wrap things up for this video. If you like the video, then give us a like, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, MTT Poker School. And until next time, guys, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.